What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Hopefully welcome back. It is a cool morning, 54 degrees. If you've been watching the channel, we've been doing a lot of videos on that excavator, track hoe, whatever you want to call it, Cat 215B back there. And you know what they say, where concentration goes, energy flows. So we've been working on that a lot. But I've got all these parts sitting here for this Yamaha big wheels, and I'm looking to get back on this thing. So if you remember from the other videos, if you've been watching them, well, I hate to beat the dead horse, but there's that crybaby dog crying again. She's no YouTube videos, just throw the toys. So my big fat butt doesn't do well on this thing with a blown rear shock and blown front fork. So we got a eBay special. It's a 200, it's either 290 or 3 something or other millimeter shock that's going to lift this thing up and make it heavy set, chonky, adult friendly. I also got fork oil. Chose 15 weight, and I've got the fork seals. Hopefully those are correct. I got some stainless steel hardware for the chain cover, magneto cover, whatever you want to call it. We have a new throttle cable, and then I've got a case seal there, grips, and then I'll put a link in this description. I didn't do it the last time. A 3D printed air boot that you can't find anymore. For these big wheel 80s from the airbox to the carburetor. And another thing we're going to do is pull the clutch cover back off of this thing. When I go to put it in gear, it stalls out. I think that all the clutches are stuck together from allegedly sitting in a barn for 25 years. So what we're going to do is take that clutch basket apart, check to see what's going on with this clutch plates. I expect to see some surface rust on the steels, and maybe the frictions are a little sticky. Another thing that we're going to do while we're in there, this has basically a centrifugal clutch. I'm going to throw a little photo in here so you can get a visual ahead of time, but there's a number of steel balls that, once the RPM increases to a certain point, they will engage or disengage the clutch. And think of it, let's think of it more in the automotive sense of stall speed on a torque converter. If we take 4 balls out, it's going to give us a higher stall, which means that we can leave at a higher RPM. And with me being a heavy rider and completely inappropriate for this bike, will be more in what they refer to as the power band, the RPM range that the engine makes its power in when we're taking off. And it'll kind of give us a great whole shot effect. If a younger or lighter rider was to ride this, it would have the same effect, but for them it would feel a little more racy, as opposed to just a smooth, mild trail bike. But yeah, so if you haven't watched the videos on this, we've done a whole bunch of work to this thing. I got this for $250 off a marketplace, not running. And yeah, so let's get to doing a little bit of work. I think we're going to drain the oil out of this thing first. Oh, and one other thing I didn't mention, that bolt right there. There's a bolt for, I guess, what holds this lower cradle that the pegs are supported on the bottom of the motor that's missing. And I had to get one of those, so we'll be putting that in too. A lot of little stuff on this bike, and these type of projects can nickel and dime you to death. And at this point, we're not in it, for crazy money. And I don't really mind doing all this stuff because, even if you buy what I'm going to call a survivor, like a decent bike that's running and driving normally, you're going to have to start doing stuff like tires and all the kind of stuff that we're doing anyhow. So if we do it, it's all fresh and we know what we got. So let's get after it. Whoop. thing I didn't mention is I wanted to see what the seat height difference is going to be from this shock kind of just sitting here with no weight on it. I'm going to say 25 3/4 inches from the ground to the top of the seat, just kind of sitting here leaning. So we'll see what the difference is with the new shock on there. Now this front tire is supposed to be a 19-inch. I got a 20-inch because it was cheap and available, if you know what I'm saying. So that will increase the ride height a 1/2 inch in the front. And I don't know if it was because the other tire was underinflated or whatever, but it looks pretty big on there in comparison to this 18-inch rear tire. I saw somebody was doing 19-inch rear tires. I didn't look for a 19-inch rear tire, but I wish I kind of would have. So yeah, I'm gonna get the oil draining out of this thing so that way when we go to pull this clutch cover, we're ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna pull all the plastics off of this thing, and maybe we'll start with the throttle cable and the new grips. Now, one other thing that we got to do is there's a hole in the bottom of this exhaust pipe. We're gonna have to weld that up, but it's definitely pretty loud. I don't really care about it being loud, but an exhaust leak right near the cylinders, yeah, not so great. So we got that on the menu too. Maybe not today, I don't know. We'll see. Let's see how it goes. All right, well, the end on this is much smaller than this end, so this is you know, obviously the carb side. I really don't understand why they would have put this little plastic plug on here. That doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, well, now it makes sense. So this is what you kind of get with aftermarket parts. I forget how much this cable was. It was like $7 or $8. So this end here is bigger than this end, and I guess they decided to downsize the metal end of it. It appears that these are both the ends. That's kind of a cost savings thing. And then I guess this makes up for the diameter difference going into the twist throttle, and I guess it acts as a seal too. So I guess that's what we're going to be doing there. I had considered swapping this guy over, but it's not in the best shape, so we're going to let that go. Now, because we've done an oil injection delete, we don't necessarily need this cable, but for right now, I'm just going to leave it on here. And one other thing that I think we're going to do is, if you watch the other video, because you know this is the factory cable, this is kind of pressed into the top of the old carburetor. We got a new carburetor, it's just a Chinese one off the eBay. So what I'm going to do with that situation is I'm going to use the old, I guess the new top for when we put this cable end into the top of the carburetor. Now we are going to be using the old choke cable that's kind of pressed into here, so I guess I'm going to have to remediate that. So I think that's what we're going to start with for the moment. All right, so you can see here, this guy is kind of pressed into there, and then fortunately, luckily I found that little nut. Fortunately, this cable end is small enough to pull out of there. I'm I'm gonna have to get a punch and knock this out so we can reinstall that in the new one. All right, so I've got a small punch and hammer to get this out. One thing we've got to pay attention to is the orientation of this coming out of here. It appears that this is, if you hold these bolts horizontally, this is at like, there's 6 o'clock. I would say this is at like 7 o'clock. So that's where we want to make sure that's at. And I might reference this video to get this back in there. All right, so here's where we could have a little bit of an issue. So as you can see that this has got a decent amount of length to it, whereas this does not. I don't think, so this is threaded. I don't think that, oh boy, this is how it goes down sometimes. So I don't think that I can use this new carb top, if you will, because I'm not going to get enough adjustment out of there. So I think what I really need to do is put this back in here and then knock this one out and then use this top. So let me see if I got this about right. I think that's about where it was. This new cable doesn't really seem to fit in the hole. I'm going to get my ignition file out and file this a little bit to make it fit better. All right, so what I did there was I had this portion sitting into the vise, and then I took my 10mm socket over here. That way we're not stressing out the body of this carb top, and then tapped it down in there. So you can see that's seated down in there real nice. And if you're not real familiar with parts and stuff like that, this is one of the many reasons why you'll see people say stuff like, you know, OEM parts or new old stock parts, because you don't have to do this monkeying around. The stuff fits fine. Like, this isn't a factory restoration. This is, you know, just an old bike we're putting together. So it doesn't really matter that things aren't period correct or, you know, perfect fits. Like, this is a little bitched up and that doesn't look very nice, but it just is what it is. This is the stuff that'll drive you about nuts. This is what we're supposed to have. This is what we have. Not the same thing at all. This cable, it's just not going to work. It's not going to work at all. It's not the same. It's not going to be the same. There's only one thing I can try to do, and I don't know if I want to do it or not. All right, so I don't know if this is going to work or not, but if you can see, I noticed that this cable seems a little longer than the other one. So this cable is sitting there instead of inside of here like it's supposed to. Will the throttle be able to close all the way? I don't know. We're going to put it back together and see if it works. Let's just give it a shot. Unbelievable. Can you believe I found this little guy? You know, you get flustered. Like, I'm getting flustered. I'm not going to lie. I'm getting a little TO'd, a little ticked off, but I found it, and that's awesome. All right, so now we can put this back together. Yes, crybaby. All right, so more joys of aftermarket parts. This one will go right in there. This one, not so much. Why, you might ask? It's too wide. So I have to file this thing down so it's not too wide. You get what you pay for, you know? $8 cable's an $8 cable. All right, so I got this thing through there. Now we've got this rubber. I think I'm going to stick the rubber in the hole first and then push this in because it was wanting to blow out. Another thing to consider too is if you got to do like I did, where you've got to file the face of this down, you got to chamfer the edges so that it's still going to, you know, go into this carb. Into this grip for the twist throttle. Otherwise, it's going to basically seem like it's too big and not fit. All right, so we've got an immense amount of play in this throttle cable. What I like to do when I'm adjusting these cables is you have the cable up here at the handlebars, which is what I'm going to refer to as a quick adjustment. And then you've got the one down here, which is a not so quick adjustment. I like to go like 50% on each one. That way you don't have all of your adjustment at either end. You can make a quick adjustment up here and you're not out of cable there, or if you're down here, you can make an adjustment. I'm going to go out with this to see how much I've got to work with. We may not have enough. This is crazy. So we got two problems right now. There's more cable than there is adjustment, and the throttle sticking like it was before. So this throttle sticking situation seems to be a carb problem and not a throttle cable problem. We bought a throttle cable because the carb was sticking, but the carb is sticking because the carb is sticking, not because the cable's sticking. So like I said, we've got a carb sticking issue. What I want to do before I go any further is to take this back apart and see if there's something going on with this aftermarket grip that came with the twist throttle. Maybe that's the problem and not the cable. We'll see. I don't know if you're noticing a theme or not, but we're having some problems with aftermarket parts. All right, so I think that the problem is this and not the cable. If you look at these two, all right, this is very similar, okay, but with this twist throttle, you do not have this stopper right here. So no stopper basically means that this thing can get pulled forward and it's going to simulate too much cable. So what we're going to do is go back to the OEM one, and if I can, I'll pull this grip off of here. If not, we'll just throw it in the trash and get some regular grips. You live and learn. All right, so I've got all the slack out now. Slack issue resolved, sticking carb not resolved. Now that spring has plenty of tension. I would say that there's going to be something between the body of the carb, and I don't know what that piece is called that slides up and down, but there's going to be something going on there. So we're going to go ahead and pull this carb back off and see what the issue is. This seems to be sliding up and down in this carb just fine. I'm going to get the old carb parts and see if that spring is different. I can't feel a definitive difference between the two, but I'm going to try the old spring. Okay, take 3. Something is binding here. Something's binding in this twist throttle assembly. I would assume there's going to be some corrosion in here that's causing the issue. I guess that's good news, okay? But this is a great time to talk about perspective. This could be you at home beating your head against the wall and you're wondering, hey, is it just me? Am I an idiot? Am I a big stupid dummy? Do I have any business working on stuff? And the answer is yes. You have business working on stuff. These are the type of problems that you're either going to have them or you're not going to have them. So you might get lucky and everything goes great, but it's more than likely that you're not going to get lucky and things are not going to go great. So if you're having problems, it's not just you, it's me too. I don't know, it's free now. Something was unhappy. It's fine now. We're getting wide open throttle. Way she goes, boys. Way she goes. All right, well, I guess let's do something fun to offset the unnecessary misery. Let's put that shock on. All right, so if you notice, we're going to need a spacer. We don't have any spacers right now. We could use washers. I'm going to see if I can find some washers. All right, so we are at 35 millimeters on this one. I would be using bald eagles instead of millimeters, but we're working on a Japanese bike, so we're using the millimeters. The old metric system. This one is 21 millimeters, so you need a lot of millimeters. Grabbed a bunch of washers. Let me see what I've got and what that adds up to. With all the washers I've got right now, it gets us to 30 millimeters. So we're just gonna run with that for now, and I'll get some more washers, or this pin is 10 millimeter. I'll get I guess maybe a 3/8 piece of round stock and make some proper spacers. One thing I noticed when I went to test fit these pins, both of these sides have some type of a burr and the pin's not going through. So we're going to give that a quick file. All right, so we've encountered another issue. When I go to put it in with the adjustment on the bottom the way you would normally have it, this is hitting the frame, so we're going to have to put it in upside down. Okay, so I don't know what this bracket is for. I believe it could possibly be for the oil tank, and we don't have the oil injection anymore. It's hitting both ways, and if I try to put it on this way, I could grind these edges down and make it fit, but if you look, that's how this is installed. It's threaded on there, so if I do that, it's really going to weaken this. I don't want to do that. I think what I can do is, because we're not using this, I'm going to take these adjustable wrenches, and I'm just going to try and bend these brackets out of the way a bit. And if for some reason we need to reinstall those components later, we can do that, and I didn't actually cut them off or like totally destroy them. Okay, so oh boy. We're hitting the wall again. I think I'm going to grind the frame a little bit. I'm going to need to pull the exhaust off to do this. We're doing it. We are doing it. And there's the holes that we have to weld up anyhow. So, yeah. I'm breaking one of my own rules right now. I'm going to go get my face shield. If that thing blows up, we're in bad news. I'm going to put this dog up too. Come on, buddy. We're going to go in the other house. Come on. Let's go, buddy. We'll go in here for a minute, okay? Okay, so it fits now. What we're going to do is I'm going to just slap everything together. I'm not lubing it. I'm not file fitting any of this stuff or doing paint touch up, just because this is kind of proof of concept. And I'm never going to do like what I'm going to refer to as a back to original restoration. Let's say somebody bought this and like, oh, you know, you altered the frame or whatever. You could weld that back on with just stack and weld up or a piece of metal, grind it down, reshape it, powder coat it, and it would be fine. These pieces here, you can bend them right back where they go. I'm in no way concerned about that stuff. So instead of just doing what I'd like to do is just hacking them off, I'm leaving them there just in case. You know, because we're basically altering the bike to put a piece of junk shock on there. So I'm not trying to get too crazy with it. Well, this is pretty hilarious. I went through the effort of getting all those washers snuck in there, and this is the pin that goes in the front. So in theory, when I pull that pin out, all the washers are going to come falling out. Got an idea, and should work. We're going to tap this screwdriver through, and hopefully all the washers will stay in place. All right, that worked. I feel like this could very easily be like a don't work on junk ad, like the don't do drug ads in the 80s. What a mess. Oh, cotter pin in here. What appeared to be in there before was like a piece of wire, you know? So, while I might be over here floundering, at least I'm not building an absolute full-on death trap. All right. Literally been working on this for hours. We now have a functioning aftermarket throttle cable on that we may or may not have actually needed. We've got a El Cheapo junky shock hacked on here, and I'm interested to see what our new ride height is. I guess this might be a good time to what else was on the list? You know, I could probably peel this grip off. I'm not worried about grips right now. We'll do the air boot later. I think what I'm going to do now is flip this thing over and get into this this clutch situation, if you will. All right, if you're wondering why I'm putting this thing on its side, you'll see when I pull this clutch cover off. I'm going to get you guys a better angle so you can see this, because all of those balls are sitting down in there, and if I was to take it apart standing up, they're all just going to fall out, which is fine because you can pick them back up and put them back in there, but you can't put them back together like that. So it would be real nice if this seal that I previously put on this crankcase would stay intact. I did put some red RTV on it, so it's probably going to be stuck to something and tear and get a new gasket, but it'd be nice if the old one just stayed intact. Sweet. I try to do this stuff. I'll put RTV on the cover side and then put the gasket on. A lot of times you got to work on stuff, so now we can reuse this gasket, which is nice. But we've got another one for later in case we need it. Let's get you guys a better camera angle. All right, check it out. Here we are. So let's get into this. So as you can see, there's a break in the clip right here. I'm going to go ahead and get this up above the ridge. I'm going to get the trusty old pocket screwdriver out and walk this thing out the rest of the way. All right, so that's out. I'm going to set that down here. All right, I think my suspicions are correct. Look at this. this rusty tarnish, if you will. Okay, here is our first clutch friction. You can see it's looking real contaminated. There's the disc, or I'm sorry, the steel. So these are all in not great condition. So this is kind of what I want to call a judgment call, where I think the right thing to do would probably be to replace all of the steels and all of the frictions. But this is kind of like a budget build, if you will. So I think what I'm going to do for now is, I like to do stuff in stages. So what we're going to do is, we're going to take all this stuff apart, we're going to clean it and put it back together. So some of this I'm going to do off camera, but I'm just going to basically take my angle grind, or I'm sorry, my 4-inch grinder, and I'm going to put a basically a wire. I'll show you before I do it. I'm going to put a wire brush attachment on there, and I'm just going to clean all of the surface rust off of here, and then I'm just going to hand wire brush these and get all this debris out. So I think we'll be fine. But yeah, this is why it's stalling out going into gear. So there's supposed to be 12 of them in here. As you can see, we've got, let me see, 3, 6, 9, 12. I'm pretty sure somebody may, actually, you know what? Somebody may have already altered this, because I believe that there's supposed to be a ball for every notch. So we've got 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I think what I'm going to do for now, because we're kind of in a testing phase, we're going to leave it the way it is, because it looks like somebody may have already done this mod, because we should have 3 more balls, and these are all evenly spaced out. We're going to leave that the way it is, because I think somebody's already done the mod, like I said. And what we're going to do is, like I said, clean these clutch frictions up, and then we're just going to put it back together. I do have new clutch discs in my shopping cart on eBay, so I might just go ahead and order those, because we're probably going to need them. But like I said, that's why I thought it was stolen out. I think we've confirmed that. The oil looks kind of crappy. So what we'll do is clean those up and then just put it back together the way it is, and we'll test it. You know, it's fun to see what works and what doesn't work. So I'm going to basically click you guys off and clean these up, because I don't have enough storage to do a time lapse on that, and it's just going to drag the video out. So see you guys soon. Just checked. I think I got enough storage space to do this on camera. Let's go for it. If you guys like other repair videos, got more junk back there that I'm working on. We got that Cat 215B I've done some videos on recently. If you want to check that out, we got that going on too. So I've got the special sauce here. This is 1 part gasoline, 3 parts diesel. I like to use this for cleaning stuff up, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to set all these frictions off to the side. We'll do these by hand with a wire brush, but for right now we're going to be going after all the steels. Yeah, it's I said this to a customer yesterday. I'd done some hail repair on his 2025 Tesla Model S, and I didn't see him when he picked it up. I wanted to look over it, because he's a very particular guy. Most of my customers are. So he emailed me at, like, I don't know, 8 o'clock Monday night, and was like, hey, I found another dent. And there was one spot where I think it was part of the way the manufacturing was done on the hood. So I think it was more the way the hood was made. It was definitely not a hail dent. So I, as a courtesy, went out to his house and checked it out and confirmed it wasn't a hail dent, and it was just the way the hood was made. And he had some, you know, $4,000 worth of PPF on this car. I said, look, you got to pull the PPF off to fix this if you want to do it. So I don't want to do that. And I said, well, you know, I don't always need to be right, and this is my rambling point, but I would prefer not to be wrong. So I've had a hypothesis about this. I don't need to be right, but it always feels good to be right, and I don't need to be right, but I would prefer to be right. So let's get into it. Winning. Oh, you know what? Hold that thought. I need some gloves because I don't want to get eaten alive, and you will get eaten alive by this wire wheel if it gets a hold of your fingers. If you take a look here, that's nice and clean metal. That's rusty. We are definitely going to order new frictions. I'm going to let these basically do what you kind of call burnish into these old steels. We'll reuse these. If this was a race bike, I would replace these in a second, but it is not a race bike. It's just an old fat cat. Be right back. Okie dokie. So now we're going to lube these up with some ATF. Okay, there are, generally speaking, only two kinds of ATF. One being automatic transmission fluids, and the other being a government agency, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, that wants to infringe on your rights. Now this ATF only wants good things for you, so we're going to stick with this one. Okay, I'm going to take this back over there, and then I'll come back and get you guys. All right, so we are just about ready to go back together. One more thing we got to do is put these springs in between all of these frictions. Okay. So we've got that whole pack back together, and we are basically just going to drop it straight down in here, and this is everything went back together good because we had all the frictions lined up, but the last little bit that we got to do here, this needs to get compressed down, and then we're going to put this snap ring back in. One of these springs just popped out. At least that thing didn't go loose. And this is real simple. I'm gonna make sure that this falls in between one of these little stays. I don't know what you call those, but it's kind of like a keeper in a sense. I'm actually going to redo this because I don't know if you can see or not, but I would prefer to have this intersecting on top of one of these flat surfaces. All right, so we're back together. One thing, I don't know if you noticed that I was pushing outwards while pushing down on this pressure plate, making sure that this thing is seated in here real nice. It looks like these are not completely meeting on top of there. I'm not going to go crazy trying to get that on there. I don't think that that matters completely, and it's going to come back apart when I replace these frictions. So we are all ready to put this clutch cover back on. Okay, so we've got this new boot off of eBay. This guy is 3D printed. I'm pretty sure that this is the correct orientation. Let's see if this thing fits. Now, all right, so this bottom side is kind of popping out. It does not appear to be fitting perfectly. But that's kind of what was going on with this one from the factory that was rubber. This is not all that flexible, so could that be attributing to the issue? Quite possibly. All right, well, my battery died in the middle of putting that back together. Didn't realize that was the case. Lost some footage, whatever. We're back at it. One last thing to do, two things. We're going to put this bolt in to, keep these foot pegs from dropping down. I want to measure the seat height. So, I think, gosh, where were we at before? I think it was like 26.5 or something. We'll have to double check the video. So right now we're at 28.5. So if I got my measurements right, I don't know if it was 26 or not, but we're 2 inches of seat height higher, and the bike looks pretty normal right now. The back end doesn't seem like it's sitting down. The front tire doesn't seem absurdly too big anymore, which is nice. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is turn this thing around and try and get that bolt in there. Grumpy little girl. Grumpy.
to mess with the tuning on this carb a little bit. It's kind of just bulging right out. Oh. I don't know that this is the problem, but I'm going to put a little more fuel in it because I didn't put that much in here to begin with. It's acting like it's running out of fuel. Gas cap is not cold. It's breathing. That thing runs good. I will tell you this much. Right now with this, I think if I rebuild the front forks, it won't be as bad, but the bike feels like I'm wanting to fall forward. Even with these handlebars this far forward, I'm just up too high in the back. But you can see that these front forks, I mean, and there's also play in the neck. I don't know if that's all just the bearings or whatnot, but between the front forks being blown and watch the neck, that play in the neck there, you feel like you're ready to wreck and die. So let me see how much storage we got left. We might cap this video off here, but it runs and drives now. And it's sitting a lot nicer, generally speaking, but it's definitely a little bit too high in the back. Good times, man. So we have finally got this thing to move under its own power. The clutches aren't stuck anymore. What a fiasco. It took a very, very long time to do some simple stuff, but we're getting close now. I got to adjust these rear brakes and rebuild these front forks. I don't know if we have enough time left in this video to do that and figure out what's up with the neck being so sloppy. But yeah, I'm gonna either end the video here or pause for a minute.